You take a breath. Not a hurried one. Not the kind that rushes in after running or laughing. This is the kind that moves slowly, rising in your chest like a quiet tide, then falling again like a leaf drifting downward. It is easy to forget how magical even that is. A breath. Invisible. Effortless. Constant. And yet, everything begins there. Now, imagine a breath that is not yours. Not even human. Imagine a breath taken on a world far beyond your sky. A breath drawn through lungs that never knew oxygen. A breath that tastes of methane. The stars you see at night, each tiny sparkle, may cradle their own worlds. Some are large and bright. Others are small, dim, old. Around them spin planets, moons, and atmospheres strange to you. Some of those planets are made of ice. Some are wrapped in storms. Some, maybe, are gentle, cradling the possibility of life. Not life as you know it. Not cells that need oxygen or hearts that beat red blood. But if you think of Earth and its soft blue air, full of oxygen and nitrogen. You breathe it in without thinking. But oxygen, for all its comfort here, is actually a wild and reactive thing. It tears through molecules. It burns in the right conditions. Long ago, Earth had no oxygen at all. And still, life found a way. Tiny organisms bubbled and multiplied in ancient seas, long before your kind ever walked. They did not need oxygen. They built their bodies from simpler things: methane, hydrogen, sulfur. They whispered to one another in the quiet language of chemistry. They were not complex, but they were alive. And they changed everything. So now you wonder, if life began on Earth without oxygen, could it begin again somewhere else, still without it? You close your eyes and drift higher, beyond Earth's gentle sky. You pass the moon, pale and silent. You pass Mars, rusty and cold. Then beyond Jupiter and its swirling storm. Past Saturn, ringed and distant. And further still, out toward Titan. Titan is Saturn's moon, but it does not shine like ours. It glows softly beneath a haze of orange mist. Its lakes and rivers do not flow with water. They ripple with liquid methane. Cold, still, alien. And yet, Titan is one of the most Earth-like places in the solar system, not because it is warm or bright, but because it has weather. It has clouds and rain. It has valleys carved by flow. It has chemistry that speaks of complexity. Could something breathe in those orange skies? Could lungs, if they exist, draw in methane instead of oxygen? Could cells, instead of oxidizing, do something else, something stranger, yet still alive? A breath, after all, is just a way of exchanging. On Earth, you take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. Plants do the opposite. Together, you dance in invisible harmony. But what if, on another world, the dance uses different partners? Methane is a simple molecule, one carbon, for hydrogens. It burns in oxygen here. But in a different atmosphere, with different pressure, with different chemistry, it might nourish instead of burn. Imagine a creature whose breath draws in methane like your lungs draw in air. Its blood might not be red. Its lungs might not be pink. Its skin might glisten in methane's cold. But still it might move. It might sense. It might grow. And perhaps, in its own way, it might wonder. You breathe again, a little deeper now. It is comforting, somehow, to think that life does not belong only to oxygen. That breathing can take many forms. That somewhere, in a far and silent orbit, something stirs gently in a gas you cannot breathe, but it can. And if that is true, then life is not a single song, sung in one voice. Life is a chorus. A vast and varied one, humming in different tones across the galaxy. You begin to realize, breathing is not just about lungs. It is about balance, exchange, the way the inside meets the outside, and both are changed. Even on Earth, not all breath is the same. Deep under the sea, in darkness too black for eyes, strange creatures breathe chemicals that would poison you. They do not need the sun. They survive on gases from deep within the earth. Their breath is foreign, and still, it keeps them alive. So perhaps the question is not what we breathe, but how we adapt. You picture a world where methane rains like soft drizzle, where clouds are thick with chemicals, where sunlight is faint or absent. And somewhere, perhaps in a shallow pool or under an icy crust, something tiny lives. It grows. It divides. It waits. That too is a kind of breath. That too is a beginning. You turn the idea gently in your mind, the way a leaf floats in a pond, just circling. You do not need an answer tonight. You only need the wonder. Because if breath can be different, then perhaps Earth, with all its oxygen and blue skies, is just one variation, not the rule. And if that is true, then life, too, is not a single script, but a library still being written. The air around you feels a little softer now. You feel your own breath again. Slow, rhythmic, familiar. But now it carries something new, the quiet thought of other worlds and other ways of being. And in that thought, something stirs. A memory of Earth's own alien past. A time when even this planet did not yet breathe air. And yet, life whispered and began. So what was Earth like back then, when its skies were not yet blue and its air not yet safe to breathe? Close your eyes for a moment and erase everything you know about Earth. No grass. No oceans the color of mirrors. No birds or bees or summer skies. Now imagine it new, but not soft. Imagine it wild. The sky is red. The clouds are thick and low, swirling with smoke. The ground beneath your feet bubbles and cracks. Rivers are made of molten stone. Volcanoes do not sleep, they breathe fire. And the air is not for lungs. It is heavy with carbon dioxide, ammonia, methane, and sulfur. You could not breathe here. You would not survive a second. But Earth, even in this form, is alive. Not with forests or whales but with fire, water, rock, and reaction. This is Earth as it was more than 4 billion years ago, raw, unfinished, unkind. And into this storm, something begins. Not something large. Not something loud. Something microscopic. Invisible. Patient. The earliest life on Earth, as far as we know, appeared not in gentle places, but in the extremes. In underwater vents where heat met ice. In pools where acid steamed. In rocks that held onto just enough water to create a reaction. These tiny forms of life, not even cells as you know them, began to capture energy. To change. They were called anaerobes, because they did not need oxygen. They could not have, because oxygen was not yet here. You take a slow breath now, oxygen-rich and effortless. But for nearly 2 billion years, Earth's life breathed without it. Instead, it used methane, hydrogen, sulfur. It took in what was around and made do. It found a way to turn chaos into continuity. You might think of life as delicate, soft skin, beating heart, fragile form. But the truth is, life begins in pressure. In extremes. It adapts because it must. And it remembers how. Those first microbes, some scientists call them LUCA, the last universal common ancestor, were tiny chemists. They transformed gases. They fed on minerals. They were not conscious, but they were responsive. And they multiplied. Slowly, the planet began to shift. The sky cleared just a little. Water began to pool. And those tiny beings learned to make food from light. Photosynthesis began, not the kind you know today, but an early form. One that still used methane. One that still worked without oxygen. And then, something miraculous happened. A new kind of photosynthesis appeared. One that did use water, and in doing so began to release oxygen as waste. At first, this oxygen was rare. A trace. But over millions of years, it built up. And when enough had gathered, it changed everything. To those ancient microbes, oxygen was poison. It destroyed many of them. But others adapted. They learned to use it, to burn energy more efficiently, to evolve. You are the descendant of those who made peace with oxygen. But the story did not begin with it. You come from a world that, once upon a time, looked alien. You are born of a planet that was toxic, fiery, inhospitable. And yet, life bloomed. Quietly. Steadily. So now, when you wonder if life might exist on another world, in methane, in sulfur, in cold, remember, your own world was once that strange. And life found a way. You imagine the early sky now, thick with haze, not blue. The sun, fainter through the carbon clouds. Lightning striking ancient seas. The scent of sulfur rising from volcanic vents. And in those vents, tiny forms stir. They are not plants. They are not animals. But they are alive. They feed on gases you cannot breathe. They live in water too hot to touch. And even today, you can still find their descendants, deep in the ocean, where light never reaches. They remember the ancient way. The pre-oxygen way. It comforts you to think this, that life is not fragile. It is fierce in quiet ways. It endures not because the world is easy, but because it learns to change. You too are made of that story. The cells in your body carry echoes of those first living things. Mitochondria, the tiny power stations inside you, are thought to be ancient symbionts, once separate, now part of you. They burn oxygen to make energy, but they descend from those who once lived without it. You are full of history you cannot feel, and that history began in fire and gas. So, when you imagine a world like Titan with its methane lakes and dark skies, or an exoplanet orbiting a distant sun, try not to ask, could life survive there? Instead, ask, could life begin there just as it began here? Because Earth, once, was no paradise. And yet, life began. Quietly, strangely, beautifully. The red sky of early Earth eventually turned blue, but only after life reshaped it. Only after millions of years of invisible breath. You breathe now, and each breath carries that legacy. Each inhale is an echo of an ancient world. Each exhale a whisper of survival. And so you wonder, as your breath slows again, if Earth began in methane and fire, then what is a breath, really? And how might a breath feel on a world where methane still rules the sky? Take a breath again, slowly, softly. Feel it enter you, then leave you. It feels so natural, almost invisible. But it is not simple. It is a ritual, a quiet exchange. Every time you breathe, a conversation begins, not with words, but with atoms. Your lungs open like gentle hands. Oxygen enters. It passes through thin, delicate walls into your blood. And then, like a gift passed down a long chain of helpers, it reaches every cell in your body. There, it helps release energy, not by magic, but by chemistry. And in return, you exhale carbon dioxide. That too has a story. Plants will take it in, turn it into sugar, return the oxygen again. So your breath is not just yours. It is shared. A cycle. A partnership. A quiet rhythm across kingdoms of life. But what if that rhythm is different somewhere else? What if breath is still an exchange, but the molecules are different? In a methane-rich world, there is little oxygen. There, breath may not carry the same conversation. Instead of oxygen coming in and carbon dioxide going out, it might be methane entering and something else leaving. Not better, not worse, just different. You imagine a creature built for that world. Not with lungs like yours, soft and pink and branching, but maybe with something more sponge-like to absorb gas more slowly. Or perhaps its skin helps it breathe, drawing in chemicals from a thick atmosphere. Maybe it does not have lungs at all, but processes gases in its cells directly, like some microbes on Earth do even now. You think of the deep-sea worms that live near volcanic vents. They have no mouth, no stomach, but they survive through a partnership with bacteria, tiny allies that break down sulfur gases into food. What if, on another world, methane-loving bacteria lived inside a creature, helping it breathe and eat at once? You see, breath is not just air. It is function. It is survival. It is the method by which life reaches out into the world and takes something in, then transforms it. Even on Earth, some microbes can breathe things like nitrate, iron, or sulfate. They do not need oxygen. They do not need sunlight. They simply need a way to move electrons. A gentle flow of energy, like a trickle of current through a wire. That flow, that transfer, that is what breath really is. So now, in the stillness, you imagine a different kind of breath. One that pulls in methane, holds it inside, and slowly converts it. The waste might be something else entirely, ethane, or a strange hydrocarbon you have never smelled. Its breath may fog the air in colors your eyes cannot see. And maybe its rhythm is slower than yours, one long inhale per hour. Maybe its heart, if it has one, beats just a few times each day. But it is alive. It is exchanging. It is changing with the world around it. That is breath. You realize now, breath is not about lungs or air or pace. It is about life's deep desire to connect. To pull something in, make it part of the self, and then release something in return. You are not separate from your environment. Every breath you take is a bridge between you and the sky, between you and the plants, between you and history. And on a faraway world, another kind of life may build its own bridge. Not with oxygen, but with what it has, methane, perhaps. Not with lungs, but with whatever it needs. The principle remains connection. And when you breathe slowly now, letting your chest rise and fall with ease, you carry this idea gently. That breath, in any form, is a whisper between self and world. It is a quiet agreement. I will take something in. I will give something back. I will live in rhythm. So the next time you see a cloudy moon or read of a distant planet, pause and ask yourself, not could I breathe there? But instead, could something else already be breathing? And that question stays with you, soft, steady, open, as you begin to drift toward a place where those possibilities take shape, toward a moon not too far from your own, where mist rolls across methane lakes and silence holds a secret. You drift now beyond Earth's gentle breath, past the green-blue world that knows your body well, outward, across the dark velvet of space, past the moon, past Mars, past the wide eye of Jupiter. And there, circling a planet wrapped in rings, you find a world wrapped in mist. Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Larger than Mercury, heavier than Pluto, but not warm, not welcoming, not familiar, at least not at first. You float near it now in your imagination, not as a traveler in a ship, but as a thought, slow, weightless, curious. Titan looks soft from a distance, wrapped in haze. Its sky is not black, but deep orange. Thick clouds curl and drift, muting the sunlight. The sun itself is a dim circle, barely more than a bright star. The cold here is deep, colder than anything you have ever touched. Nearly 300 degrees below freezing. But there is beauty here. Stillness. Silence. Beneath the clouds lie rivers and lakes. Not of water. Water here is frozen as hard as rock. But of liquid methane and ethane. Hydrocarbons, flowing in smooth, inky basins. Lakes so calm they do not ripple. Rivers that meander through ancient channels. They are eerily Earth-like in shape. They form deltas, shorelines, even possible rainfall. But everything is different. The chemistry, the temperature, the breath. Still, your eyes soften at the sight. Because it looks like something you know. A world that is both alien and familiar. And you wonder, is that enough for life? Scientists have asked this for decades. Titan is unique, the only moon known to have a thick atmosphere. It holds methane in all its forms, gas, liquid, maybe even frozen clouds. Methane on Earth burns in the presence of oxygen. But here, there is almost no oxygen. And so methane behaves like water. It rains. It carves. It pools. Could something swim in it? Could something drink it? Could something breathe it? You imagine again. Not with certainty, but with softness. You picture something small, not human, not animal, but something living. Perhaps it lies just beneath the surface of a lake, gathering chemical energy from its environment. Perhaps it uses acetylene and hydrogen instead of sugar and oxygen. Perhaps its body is slow and still, conserving warmth. Or perhaps it is so small that it drifts, unnoticed, like a whisper beneath the fog. Even on Earth, some microbes can survive in extreme cold. In Antarctic lakes sealed beneath ice for millions of years, tiny forms of life have been found, alive, feeding slowly, dreaming in the dark. If Earth can hold such resilience, then maybe Titan can hold possibility. You are not looking for life like you. You are listening for life in a new key. Titan may not offer warmth, but it offers complexity. Its atmosphere is layered and rich. Its surface shifts and changes over time. And its chemistry, full of carbon-based molecules, hints at the building blocks of something. On Earth, carbon is the backbone of life. It forms chains, rings, lattices. It bonds easily. It invites variety. And on Titan, carbon is everywhere. So what does that mean? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Life, as you know it, is not only built from carbon, it is also shaped by water, by energy, by time. Titan has carbon. It has liquid. It has weather. What it lacks is heat. But life, you have learned, is not afraid of the cold. It finds a way. It slows down. It adapts. So maybe Titan holds life in slow motion. Not pulsing, but drifting. Not growing fast, but enduring. Not seeking light, but feeding on chemistry itself. You wonder what it would feel like to touch Titan's sky. To let its methane rain fall on your skin, if your skin could bear the cold. To look up and see Saturn looming like a god in the sky, vast, glowing, ringed. You imagine a creature that lives its whole life without seeing the sun clearly. Whose sky is never blue. Whose breath is never oxygen. And still it might live. Not because it looks like life on Earth, but because it fits its world. It is tuned to its environment, the way your lungs are tuned to air. You think again of breath. On Titan, it might mean absorbing hydrogen, breaking apart methane, releasing something subtle. A breath not of wind, but of reaction. A chemical sigh beneath an orange mist. Could that be life? No one knows. But Titan waits. And in the silence of its mist, your question echoes. You do not need an answer tonight. Only the space to wonder. Because breath, you now see, is more than air. It is a bridge between self and world. And on Titan, that bridge might look different, but still reach across. So you rest here for a while, not in space, but in possibility. Drifting over cold lakes, quiet skies, and the slow breath of an alien world. And as you drift, you begin to ask gently, what makes a world capable of life? What materials must gather in the dark before the first spark begins? And somewhere far beneath Titan's fog, that question stirs again. You are no longer drifting now, you are closer. Inside a world not of landscapes, but of building blocks. A place smaller than cells, deeper than skin. You are walking through a forest of atoms. They do not look like trees. They are not solid, not silent. They pulse. They hum. They reach toward one another like fingertips wanting to connect. And when they do, something is born. A molecule. A structure. A possibility. You see carbon here, the most social atom in the universe. 4 arms outstretched, always ready to bond. Carbon makes chains. It makes rings. It makes cages and branches and endless designs. It is the artist of life. On Earth, carbon dances with hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. Sometimes sulfur, sometimes phosphorus. Together, they form everything you know: skin, thoughts, oceans, memory, breath. But what if the dance partners change? You reach out in your mind and rearrange them. You imagine carbon with hydrogen alone, that is methane. You add nitrogen, and a new behavior is born. You twist the bonds, stretch the shapes, stack the layers, and something unexpected begins to emerge. This is the chemistry of possibility. On a world like Titan, where methane reigns and oxygen is scarce, carbon still rules. But it plays by new rules. It makes polymers that are not soft like your skin, but perhaps strong and cold, like icy plastic. It forms membranes that do not dissolve in water, because there is no water. Instead, they float in methane. Stable, secure. Scientists have begun to imagine these possibilities. They have even coined a term, exotosome, a membrane made not of lipids like yours, but of nitrogen-rich compounds capable of forming in liquid methane. You smile hearing the word, not because you understand every detail, but because the word feels like a doorway. Exotosome, a cell, perhaps, or the beginning of one. A shell, a shape, a vessel for breath. You imagine a tiny structure, not made of water and fat, but of different parts entirely. Still flexible, still strong, still capable of holding something alive. Inside it, what stirs? Maybe nothing yet. Maybe just chemistry, moving slowly, waiting for time. But if the right pieces come together, if energy flows and reactions repeat, then maybe, slowly, the molecules begin to remember each other, and organize, and replicate. That is how life began on Earth. Not with intention, not with vision, but with repetition, with small bonds forming again and again until something persisted, until persistence itself became survival. You think of the phrase, life as we do not know it. It is an invitation to imagine new chemistries, new hearts, new breaths. Not fantasy, not fiction, but science stretched gently beyond what is familiar. Even now, Earth holds forms of life that defy your expectations. Microbes that breathe metal, fungi that feed on radiation, bacteria that live in boiling acid. They are not accidents. They are answers to their world. So perhaps, on a distant exoplanet, or beneath Titan's crust, or in a cloud swirling with methane, there are other answers forming. Answers made not of water and oxygen, but of other languages of matter. Still speaking the language of breath. Still shaped by need and time and chemistry. You rest your thoughts now in the idea that life is not a single structure, but a pattern, a behavior. It emerges when atoms gather in the right way, with just enough energy and just enough time. That is comforting, because it means life is not rare, it is patient. It is creative. It tries again and again. And you are the result of one of those successes. A configuration of atoms that found a way to feel, to wonder. So what if something else is forming now? Not in a warm pond, but in a cold sea of methane? Not with cells like yours, but with something new? You do not need to name it. You only need to make space for the idea that carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, wherever they go, carry the whisper of life with them. And where that whisper is heard, where molecules find rhythm in the dark, breath might begin. So slow, strange, but real. And from that breath might rise a form that does not need light to live. A being that calls cold a comfort. A pattern of atoms that feels, in its own way, alive. You hold that thought gently now, because in the next step of your journey, you will drift deeper into darkness. Not the darkness of fear, but the kind where life hides, waiting for your eyes to adjust. You close your eyes now, not to sleep just yet, but to remember something deeper than sight. You feel the warmth behind your eyelids, soft, red, familiar. A memory of sunlight stored in your skin. A whisper from the star that feeds your world. But imagine a life that has never seen light. No dawn, no sky, only darkness, thick, complete, eternal. Would you call that place dead? At the bottom of Earth's oceans, far below the reach of sunlight, the sea floor stretches like a shadowed plain. Down here it is always night. And yet, life pulses. Near underwater volcanoes, Black chimneys rise from the crust. They belch heat, minerals, and gases into the freezing ocean. This is no gentle heat, it scalds, boils, fumes. And around these hydrothermal vents, strange creatures gather. Worms without eyes, crabs with no pigment, bacteria that feed on sulfur instead of light. You are seeing life without photosynthesis, life without sunlight, life that survives not through warmth from above, but through chemistry from below. It is called chemosynthesis. Instead of harvesting light to make food, these organisms harvest chemicals. Hydrogen sulfide, methane, ammonia. They take what the earth gives and make life from it. It is a different kind of breath, a different kind of hunger, but it works. Whole ecosystems exist down there, not fragile, but ancient. They grow slowly, they bloom in the dark, and even if the sun were to blink away, some of these beings might continue, warmed by the deep fire of Earth itself. This changes everything, because it means light is not required. Not for all life. Not always. It means that a world without sunshine, a world like Titan or Europa or some distant exoplanet hidden in starlight's shadow, might still hold the spark of life. You drift now, not across oceans, but across possibilities. What if life formed beneath the ice of a frozen moon, where liquid water stays hidden under miles of pressure and silence? What if tiny organisms feast not on sugar, but on iron? What if, instead of growing tall toward the sun, they grow sideways or downward into stone? Even on Earth, some microbes live inside rocks, deep underground, locked away from light for millions of years, still metabolizing, still replicating, still there. You begin to realize life is not addicted to light. It is addicted to energy. Where energy flows, whether from the sky, from fire, from chemical tension, life may follow. Light is one source, but not the only one. So now, when you picture alien life, you begin to let go of the image of trees and birds and blue. You begin to allow for quiet things, for slow things, for life that does not bloom, but endures. And endurance is beautiful. You think of tardigrades, the water bears, that survive in boiling water, freezing ice, radiation, even space. They shut down, wait for the world to change, then return. They are not alien. They are earthborn. But they show you the truth. Life is not fragile. It is patient. You remember the caves on Earth where no light enters, and still, glowing fungi grow. You think of salt pools pink with bacteria, of icy deserts with sleeping seeds, of Arctic snow where cells stir in silence, waiting only for the melt. Life, real life, does not demand luxury. It asks only for a crack in the dark where it can begin. So when you look at a world like Titan again, you no longer need sunlight to imagine life. You look for chemistry, for warmth, for movement, even if the warmth is faint, even if the movement is microscopic. Because in the end, life is a pattern, a repetition of actions that preserve the self. Breath, yes, but also feeding, healing, splitting, remembering. And you are made from that same code. The life in your body, the cells that heal your skin, the enzymes that digest your food, they follow the same laws. They do not need to think. They only need to continue. So maybe, far from your sun, under the thick crust of an alien moon, tiny life continues too. Unseen, undiscovered, undeniably alive. You imagine touching such a world. Not stepping onto it, not yet, but placing your awareness there. In the crust, in the cracks, in the slowness. You picture something small, something that has never seen the sky, never known a sun. It does not grow fast. It does not glow. But it breathes, in its own way. And it lives. You open your inner eyes again and feel your own breath. And you are not so different. You live in warmth. You depend on light. But your breath, too, is a quiet transaction of chemistry. A flow of electrons. A conversation without sound. And in that you feel connected. To worms in the dark. To bacteria in the stone. To what might be forming even now in the shadows beyond Saturn. Because life does not always seek the light. Sometimes it becomes the light, glowing gently from within. And as you drift to the edge of sleep, your thoughts flicker toward a new question. If something can live without light, then how might it breathe? On a world where methane fills the sky? You inhale. You do not think much about what happens next, but inside, your lungs unfold like quiet wings. Air fills them. Oxygen travels into your blood. Carbon dioxide flows out. You are not doing this to stay alive. You are simply being. And being, for you, includes breath. Now imagine a different breath. One not made of oxygen and carbon dioxide. One not warm or light, but dense, cold, methane-rich. On another world, another body takes in air, not the kind you breathe, but thick with methane and hydrogen. It expands something inside itself. Maybe not lungs. Maybe something more like folds or fibers, flexible and wide. It holds the breath longer, processes it slower. Because in this world, time moves gently. Cold slows everything. What happens next? Perhaps the methane bonds with another gas inside the body. Perhaps it breaks down and releases energy. Not much, but enough. Enough to power a thought. A movement. A memory. On Earth, breath is not just about pulling air in and out. It is about metabolism, the way your body converts fuel into energy. You use oxygen because it is powerful. It helps your cells unlock energy fast and efficiently. But oxygen is not the only way. Some Earth microbes, even today, do something different. In places where oxygen cannot reach, deep underground, in swamps, in the bellies of animals, tiny organisms breathe methane. Not the same way you do. But they use it. They transform it. They live off it. These are called methanotrophs. And their very existence proves a point. Methane is not dead space. It is potential. So now, on a distant exoplanet or a moon like Titan, you imagine a being, not like you, not bipedal or tall, but simple and adapted. Its cells are built differently. Its proteins fold to match the cold. Its breath is methane in, perhaps something else out, maybe, or a vapor that Earth's air would never know. It may not breathe quickly. Its heart, if it has one, may beat slowly. Every breath might take minutes. Every movement a meditation. But it is alive. It takes in part of its world. It transforms it. It returns something new. That is breath. You begin to think of lungs not as a shape, but as a process. Your lungs are sacs, yes, branching in pink. But what they do is more important than how they look. They trade gases. They deliver energy. On a methane world, perhaps lungs are not even inside. Maybe the skin itself breathes, porous and sensitive to methane flow. Maybe small chambers lie beneath the surface, expanding and contracting like gills in reverse. Or maybe there is no organ at all, just a chemical system built into the fabric of the being, like algae or sponges here on Earth. No breath as you know it, but still a kind of breath. Still, a quiet conversation with the air. You think again of what breath feels like. The expansion, the release, the rhythm. Now imagine it slower, colder. A breath that is not felt in the chest, but as a ripple beneath thick, protective skin. Methane itself is a small, stable molecule. It does not carry as much energy as oxygen. But life, if patient, does not need intensity. It needs consistency. In the calm of a methane sea, beneath clouds that never clear, perhaps a form stirs. Not loudly, but enough. Its breath is a function of its home, not an accident, but an answer. You sit with that thought. That breath is an answer to the question the world is always asking. What do you need to live here? And breath replies, I will find a way. You feel your own breath now, softer than before. And you begin to see it not as a human thing, but as a living thing. Not as something you do, but something life does in many forms. So you are not alone. You are not the only one breathing. You are simply part of a pattern, a vast, slow, intricate pattern of beings reaching into their world and drawing something in. If you listen closely, you might hear it. The inhale of microbes beneath the ice. The exhale of warmth from a vent. The patient rhythm of chemistry becoming self. And in the midst of a methane-rich sky, that rhythm might be playing out right now. Unseen, unheard, but surreal. So the next time you take a breath, let it be a reminder. That breath, in all its forms, is not bound to your world. It is a question asked by life, and answered differently in every corner of the cosmos. Now your thoughts begin to settle like snow in quiet air. And as you breathe once more, you wonder, if breath can take so many forms, then what is life really? And who gets to decide where it begins? You lie still now. Your breath has slowed. Your thoughts, like water, ripple gently in the dark. And in this stillness, one question begins to glow. What counts as life? You have seen many forms already. Worms that live without sunlight, bacteria that eat metal, organisms that breathe methane, or hide in stone, or drift in acid lakes. But what is life? Is it a beating heart? A mind that dreams? A structure that breathes and feeds and reproduces? Or is it something quieter? Perhaps life is not a thing, but a behavior. A pattern that arises when matter begins to self-organize. A dance of molecules that folds in on itself and says, I will continue. You look inward. Your body, so familiar, is a collection of systems, organs, cells, atoms. But those parts alone are not life. It is how they act together. It is how they maintain balance, process energy, respond, heal. That is the rhythm of living. Now you look outward, to a far-off planet orbiting a distant star. Its surface is rocky, or icy, or warm with storms. And maybe, beneath its clouds, something stirs. Not a tree, not an animal, but a chemical pattern. A cluster of molecules, changing shape when touched by sunlight. Absorbing heat, releasing gas. Growing. It does not speak. It does not know your name. But does it live? You think of viruses, not quite alive by some definitions. They do not grow on their own. They do not breathe. But they replicate. They evolve. They act. You think of fire. It moves, consumes, spreads. But is it alive? Most would say no. So where is the line? There is no perfect answer. Even scientists, with all their tools and terms, still wonder. Life is not a box you tick. It is a question you ask, again and again. And the stars do not reply in words. They reply with silence and with possibility. You imagine standing on an alien world, watching something shimmer across a pool of methane. It pulses. It reacts to light. It leaves a trail. You do not know its name. You do not know its purpose. But something in you whispers, it is alive. And maybe that whisper is enough. Life, perhaps, is less about what it is and more about what it does. Does it use energy? Does it maintain itself? Does it change? Does it try? Even now, on Earth, you find life in places no one expected. In clouds. In caves deeper than mountains. In cracks of permafrost sealed for millennia. You are reminded, life does not ask for permission. It does not wait for sunlight. It simply begins, when the conditions are just right. So now, in the quiet between thoughts, you begin to release your old definitions. You allow life to be wider, stranger, more creative than you imagined. Perhaps life does not need cells. Perhaps it does not need water. Perhaps it flows like crystals, or forms webs of plasma, or grows through magnetic fields in clouds you cannot yet see. If it changes, if it endures, if it leaves behind patterns, then maybe, just maybe it counts. Not because it matches your biology, but because it reflects the same impulse. To be, to become, to continue. And in that you feel kinship. Not only with whales or trees or dogs, but with the deep microbe, the alien chemistry, the spark inside a methane sea. You do not need to meet it to feel it. You do not need to measure it to imagine it. You only need to wonder, could something live there? And already your heart answers, something could. So you carry that thought forward, like a lantern in soft fog. Not to prove anything, but to keep the question alive. Because when you ask what counts as life, you are also asking how far life can go. And that question leads you gently to the next step in your journey, not into new definitions, but into new perspectives. If something is alive, how might it see its world? And could you ever learn to see through its eyes? Close your eyes again softly. Now imagine opening them, but not as you. Not with the eyes you know, but with eyes built for another world entirely. What do you see? Maybe the sky is not blue, but a deep amber. Maybe clouds shimmer in violet and gray. Maybe methane reflects light in ways you cannot yet dream of, turning lakes into mirrors of lavender and gold. You are not simply changing the scene. You are changing the perception. Because to understand life elsewhere, you must go deeper than biology. You must ask, what is it like to be something else? You take your senses for granted: sight, sound, touch, taste, heat. But these are only ways of translating the world. Another being, born in methane fog, might see in infrared, sensing heat as patterns of glowing shadow. To it, your sunlight would be blinding, your warmth unbearable. To you, comfort is a soft blanket and warmth on the skin. To this being, comfort might be silence and cold, stillness, pressure, the familiar weight of methane air brushing over surface skin, or through chemical-sensitive filaments where nostrils might never exist. So now try again. Breathe not with lungs, but with the surface of your skin. Hear not with ears, but with the vibration of gas flowing past long hairs. Feel not temperature in degrees, but as a subtle shift in chemical density. You are not imagining a monster. You are imagining a mind, shaped by its home, tuned to its rhythms. And what does it think? Perhaps it knows time in slow pulses. Perhaps a single thought takes minutes to form. Or perhaps it lives in sharp flashes, triggered by rare warmth or bursts of light that pierce the clouds once every 100 days. Its language might be scent, its memory a dance of molecules passed from one being to another. It does not need to resemble you. To be alive is not to be human. To be conscious is not to be familiar. You think of cephalopods, the octopus, the cuttlefish, creatures of Earth whose minds are entirely alien. They change color with thought. They taste with their arms. They dream in pulses and patterns. And yet, you sense something there. Intelligence, emotion, even play. If that is possible here, then how much more is possible out there? Perhaps a creature built for methane does not fear death in the way you do. Perhaps it does not fear at all. Perhaps it lives in cycles, dissolving and reforming, like mist curling back into the sky. Or maybe it loves. Maybe it grieves. Not in your words, not in your shapes, but in its own language of reaction and response. To look through alien eyes is not only to see a different world, it is to feel differently. And that, you realize, is a kind of empathy. The most profound science is not cold calculation. It is the quiet courage to say, maybe this too has value. Maybe this too has a mind. Even if it moves slowly, even if it never speaks, even if it lives and dies in a fog no Earth instrument has touched. You breathe again now and wonder, if such a being looked at you, what would it see? Would it see heat pouring from your skin like light? Would it hear the rush of your breath like thunder? Would it smell oxygen and find it strange, dangerous, wild? And would it wonder, are you alive? In that mirrored thought, something opens. A door between minds. A kindness that reaches beyond shape. You begin to see that life is not just a thing to study. It is a perspective to honor. You do not need to fully understand it to respect it. You only need to imagine it with care. That, perhaps, is the real journey, not from Earth to Titan, but from self to other. And as you drift now, you hold that thought close, that in order to find life beyond Earth, you must also be willing to listen to differences so deep, they speak in a language without words. The next time you look up at the stars, you may not be looking for yourself, but looking to meet something you've never known. And that question, what does it see when it sees you, lingers like starlight in the corners of your mind, inviting you gently forward toward the hope that something, somewhere, might already be watching. The universe is not in a hurry. It does not blink awake like you do. It stretches slowly, in light years, in billions of years. It unfolds not with sound, but with silence. And still, something moves. Galaxies turn like patient wheels. Stars are born and die like breaths spaced across eternities. Planets form from dust, collide, melt, cool, and settle. And on one such planet, long ago, a molecule found a pattern. That was here. Your home. But what about elsewhere? You are not alone in your wondering. There are astronomers listening to the stars, biologists studying the extremes of Earth, chemists building alien membranes in quiet labs, all asking versions of the same soft question. Could something else be stirring out there? And if so, what does it look like? What does it breathe? What does it know? You have followed this question through cold lakes, slow breaths, and unseen minds. And now you arrive here, at the edge of the known, and the beginning of possibility. Not all planets are warm. Not all air is thin. Not all life needs the same sun. So perhaps, right now, on a world far beyond your reach, a molecule shifts. Just one. Drawn by energy. Reacting. Changing. And perhaps it repeats. Over and over. Until repetition becomes rhythm. And rhythm becomes memory. And memory becomes life. You will not be there to see it, but you are part of it. Because your wonder has already reached it, like light cast from a candle no longer burning. Wonder is a kind of connection. It binds what is seen to what is still unseen. It bridges the gap between now and someday. And the universe, vast and ancient, receives it. You may feel small in the face of that size. But in truth, you are stitched into its fabric. You are made of stars. You breathe air made by trees, which breathe air made by oceans, which hold echoes of the first cells. You are part of Earth's experiment, and Earth is part of the cosmos's great unfolding. So when you wonder about life in methane, when you imagine strange breath in orange fog, you are not pretending. You are participating. This is science not as answers, but as invitation. To pause, to feel, to ask. And even in asking, something shifts in you and perhaps far away. Because the universe does not speak loudly. It hums. It glows. It waits. Somewhere, in that quiet, life may already be listening. Not with ears. Not with eyes. But with presence. With pattern. With breath. You may never meet it. It may never know your name. But you share something. You both exist. You both hold rhythm. You both carry the quiet hope that to be alive is to reach for more. So tonight, as your breath slows, as your thoughts drift toward sleep, let that hope remain with you. The hope that life is not alone. The hope that the universe, vast and dark, is also gently alive. Not loud, not fast, but steady. And somewhere, right now, a first breath may be forming, and that is enough.